everybody, it's Jane Johnston with the Briar Hill Group at RE/MAX Camosa and co-host of the Victoria Real Estate Show with my friend.
Hey everybody, it's Jane's friend, Sandra Plank with Royal LePage. Good to be here yet again.
How are you?
Good. Yeah, I feel like I could be more tanned given how far we are into summer. And that's both like me getting out and the weather. But yeah, whatever, whatever.
Well, I was surprised it was raining last night. I was lying on the couch. I'm like, is it raining?
Yeah, it's been a wet summer. And again, I don't mind. I if we have not so many fires this summer, then I'm kind of okay with that. But I would like to have some good vacation weather, some nice summertime to get out.
So how's real estate land going for you?
Good. Still, for me, it's been a quieter year, and I've kind of been okay with that. But I've been, it's funny because people say to me, Andrew, you just stop posting about your cat. You're just posting stuff about your cat on the social media. I'm not posting about the business I'm doing, which is, that anti what realtors should be doing. But I am actually doing business. I'm just not being so out about it. So been giving lots of keys to clients, been finding some great homes for clients over the last little while. Really slow when it comes to listings, but there's some activity happening with that too. So yeah, it's just been an interesting year from that perspective, but I've been enjoying the pace and just sort of, I don't know, taking a gap. How about you?
Well, it's funny. I was just having that discussion with Jen earlier that she's also finding it like we're both going.
Mm-hmm.
It's slower.
Where is everyone?
Where is everybody? But I am finding I'm being more consistent and focusing more on planning, and I'm actually focusing more on listings. I am working with a lot of buyers, and I'm trying to say to them, let's just get out and go now, because as prices may be coming down, but interest rates are going up. And so there's going to be a perfect point where we need to really catch that good interest rate over the course of the next year, I think, and just reviewing what's going on in terms of the projections.
It's really impossible to predict where the low is. And I've said this so many times, but when the market's going up and it's getting worse and worse, the more desperate people are to buy, and they're willing to buy with less conditions and less sort of eyes, they don't look so carefully at what they're buying. And it's a hard time for buyers, and yet they're more active about it. And then things turn around and suddenly we have way more selection than buyers have had in a long time. It's nominally a way better time to buy in terms of selection, in terms of being able to go in and do due diligence, look at your, get a good property inspection, take some time to get proper financing lined up. But people are like, oh no, I don't want to now. I'm going to wait and see what happens. And, when things shift, and they always do, and it could be 6 months from now, it could be longer, it could be shorter, but when it shifts, it's going to be hard for people to get back in again. And they'll be thinking, oh, why didn't I buy when?
Well, if they compare the rates now to where they were 2 years ago, the rates are excellent and the prices have come down. So it's a good time to buy.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's do our stats and see what's going on. By the way, I am doing a price reduction on Whiteside for
another one, eh? So what are you coming down to?
$825.
Okay. All right. I will talk to those folks again.
Alrighty. So, sorry while I try and, there we go. Alrighty. So today's week over week, I found the stats from last week. Yay!
Jane sometimes brings in week stats from the week before because she can't find last week's. I don't know why you can't find them, but she can't find them. Okay. So the first one you do.
All right. Well, let's compare. Yeah, net unconditional sales. Last week we were at 147. We've had 140 basically over the week. And that has that's compared to 835 for July of 2021. Just remember, 2021 was a bit of an exceptional year. So we're consistent here. And then new listings, Andrew?
So that was from a week ago, right? We're talking a week ago. So new listings a week ago were 346 versus the full month of July, we're 971.
This week.
And so
31.
this week, 631 new listings.
Yeah.
So definitely more listings already come on this week than last week.
And same we have 50 new listings essentially compared to last week, and active listings. And overall, compared to last year, we're at 2,141. Last year, we were at 1,270. So that's good.
Yeah, still really low. I mean, we're still really low on inventory compared to kind of what's, I'd say, average. I think 3,500 or so would be more of a balanced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So new listings. Last week we had 311 new listings over the 7-day period, and over this past week we've had 258, of which 147 have gone pending. So that's good. Yeah,
if you look at the green versus the purple lines in both last week versus this week we certainly see more properties going pending. We also see actually less properties listing, which is par for the course as we get closer to summertime. But it's good to see that this number is kind of not just really dire, because there's been some weeks where we've looked at it and gone, wow, that's just stunningly low number of pendings versus new listings.
Yeah, so we went from basically 1/3 to 50%.
But what we do see is an increase in price decreases.
Right. So for last week we had 146 price decreases, and this week we have 160. So people are sharpening their pencils. I don't know if I mentioned this before, but just before July, at the end of June, I had 2 agents reach out to me and say, that offer that you brought in, can you bring it back?
Right. And did you say no?
No, we said yes, and Bob's your uncle.
There you go. Okay.
2 accepted offers.
Yeah.
I'm also seeing 2, the expireds have gone up too, which I think is normal.
Let's talk briefly about these price decreases though, because I've heard a lot of what I've been seeing in the media and what I've been sort of hearing from a lot of people. Media's got sort of a couple different takes on what they're calling this, but one of the things I'm seeing is that people tend to list their properties and price them optimistically quite often. And that was working in the past, where you would get these outlier buyers buying at these outlier prices, and that was bringing the property values up. It feels like we've kind of no longer in those days, and the people who are pricing optimistically and a lot of them are now having to adjust and decrease. So when it comes to actually average prices, they're a little bit they're definitely off from the heat of the springtime, but we're not seeing blood in the water in terms of huge decreases. What we're seeing is, we are seeing some huge decreases, but I feel like we're seeing those decreases coming into what's reasonable.
Yeah, and I feel like I think we are going back to where we were quite practically like a year and a half ago, where we should be actually. So I'm not particularly worried. I think that it's just that. So I always gauge it. If you have 1 or 2 people who make a really good living and they can't afford a house, then the market's too high. And we were definitely there.
Yeah.
You couldn't find a house under $1 million. Yeah. And now we're finding houses under 900,000. Perfect.
Yeah. And they're decent houses, which is great to see, because there was that point where we reached that $1 million point. You couldn't get a decent house for $1 million, and with the CMHC, which we'll have Jen Lowe in soon, but with CMHC requiring a minimum 20% down once you're above $1 million, that just cuts out so many buyers. So once that hit it got really hard for the sort of the first time buyers, the starter buyers, and buyers in the lower price points.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what happens next month when we look at the stats to see where the average is.
Yeah.
So speaking of which, here she comes.
Here she is, the one, the only.
Miss America, Miss Canada. Welcome, Jen Lowe, mortgage broker.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good. How are you guys?
Good.
Great.
I'm wondering what your thoughts are on these stats.
Very interesting. I mean, it's what I expected. seeing the price decreases, definitely slowing of the market for sure. And we're now for sure in a balanced market. Are we leading towards a buyer's market?
I would say probably.
I would almost say, like from the stats, we're in a balanced and we're leaning towards buyers. But I'd say, given what I said earlier, you've got time to look at homes, you've got selection of homes, and you can actually negotiate on them. I'd say that we are actually in a bit of a buyer's market functionally, even though the numbers aren't quite there yet.
Yeah.
So let's just talk about one of the biggest pressures in the market. And that is the overnight lending, or the prime rate that's gone from 1.5 to 2.5%. When I was
in a really
looking,
short span of time.
yeah.
Yes.
So, I mean, I think everyone expected 0.75 basis points, and when it went to 1.
That was shocking. Wednesday wasn't a very fun day.
No.
It was shocking to everybody having the 1%.
So are you going back to clients and saying, hey, you're in a variable rate, maybe you should be locking in, or what are your plans over the next 5 years? Maybe you should be locking in, or what?
It's more, the challenge is that by locking in with where fixed rates are, your payment's actually going to be going up even that much higher.
Yeah.
So not only, have clients got, their payments potentially gone up. I mean, on a $500,000 mortgage, it's gone up $260. So with the change in prime rate. So the discussion that I'm having more for those that are really concerned about their finances is looking at switching to a adjustable rate or variable rate mortgage as opposed to the adjustable rate. The difference is that the variable rate has a static payment. So as prime rate continues to change and is expected to continue to change in September, you don't have to be concerned about your payment increasing.
You do, by that effectively, though, if interest rates go up, you then extend the amount of time that you are paying your mortgage out.
Because you're paying less principal every month.
Yeah.
Yes. It's a balancing act in what you need today versus, what your goals are, in the future. And if you're from a budgeting standpoint, I completely understand. I mean, having the amount that interest rates have increased in the last few months has been overwhelming on some people for sure. Yeah. So going to the static payment is been a preference for a few people. Other people are just, as much as, myself, I don't particularly like it, but I know I can't afford it. I don't want to afford it. I'd rather spend that money elsewhere, but it is what it is. And I'm not going out for dinner as much. Right.
I think it's all a good exercise in realizing that, nothing is static, and you do have to sometimes look at tightening your belt. And I think it's good for us. Nobody wants to hear this really, but I think it's good for us to every once in a while have to say, okay, what can I do to sort of trim what I'm spending and take a look at what you're spending? Because when you're making enough money, more than you need, you don't tend to look at it and you spend to excess. So this is good for, I think, people to kind of take this look. But I heard somewhere, I saw one of my Facebook groups, they said, they were posting, this is a realtor group, but they said somewhere out there is an absolute legend that locked in a fixed rate in like whatever it was in 2019 or 2020 at like fixed rate at 2%.
I have a client who locked in for 10 years at 3.1.
Right.
Yeah, that was pretty smart of them.
Yeah.
Now, the one thing though, is that with fixed rates being where they're at, like, so let's just say, that person's laughing at 1.9%, right? They're happy as can be. Yeah. If in 2 years, they want to get out of that mortgage, because the chances are, as most people do, get out of their 5-year mortgage prior to the end of the term for selling or a life event change or whatever it may be. Their penalty, if you consider where rates are now, above 5%, it's an interest rate differential penalty. That penalty is going to be thousands of dollars to get out of that mortgage. So it takes away that amazing fixed rate.
Roy is saying he has 2.29%.
That's on a fixed, Roy, and what's the term on that?
Yeah, how many years is that? It's funny talking to U.S. Agents on last Wednesday. I'm part of a mastermind group, Remax mastermind group, and these people are all top producers, and they have no idea how it works in Canada. So I was saying, interest rates went up, and they're like, so what does that mean? And I'm like, well, it means, anybody who has a variable rate mortgage, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, what?
It's very different.
We sign and it's like a 30-year mortgage and nothing changes. And
yeah. And I was talking about that with my husband, actually, because we are compared to the U.S. so much. And the U.S. inflation is at, 9.1%. So we're trying, our government is doing whatever they can to curb our inflation. But I feel like we're forgetting that in the U.S., they've got rates locked in for the full lifetime of their mortgage.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we don't get that here.
Yeah.
You know what? When I first got in the business, or actually even before I got in the business, when I was looking for a home in 2002, I remember seeing lots of people advertising, assumable mortgages, buy this house and you can assume it at this percent rate, because they had a better rate. Maybe it was 6% instead of 8%. That was the going rate at the time or something. And so there was a value in actually buying that house and getting the lower mortgage that was assumable.
Right.
And we're kind of maybe going to be looking at that again with people who have these lower rates fixed. If they're better, then you could get at a variable. But but who knows? We could, in 2 or 3 years, we could be back down to lower rates, or we could be way up high. And it really depends on what inflation does and what the bank's feeling. But I do know, Jen, are we not hearing about some more upcoming rate hikes throughout the year?
In the fall, they're suggesting another 0.5 percentage point. And there's, rumblings about an emergency meeting potentially. If inflation doesn't come down, they may raise rates prior to that meeting in the fall.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to say that, a lot of the stats that we've been looking at, that Andrew and I were looking at for last month when we were reporting on the sales, they were from sales that happened months ago. They were closings that happened months ago. So the prices were still up. I'm expecting housing prices have gone down maybe 10%, like just based on what I'm seeing on list of sales here. And I'm seeing here, you sent us a note, housing sales stats across Canada have gone down 5.6%. I think this is volume of sales.
Yeah.
Right?
That's the one that I think is often misleading in a lot of the news, is they often talk about homes down 10% or 20%, but it's the number of sales, not the prices. And you got to, those two are really important to differentiate. And
those sales, actually, people would have 90 days ago prior to that. So we're really not going to see the stats change until the fall.
Right. Yeah. So, right now, if someone is to get a variable rate mortgage, let's say they don't have 20% down, let's say they have 10% down. Is that the majority of people buying now? Do they have 10%? What's the stats?
Actually, yeah, I would say 10% down, 5 to 10%. Okay. Technically, when your purchase price is above 500,000, it's kind of a split calculation where it's 5% of the first 500,000 and 10% of the amount above. A little while ago, you were talking about CMHC and that $1 million cap. Apparently, that is here to stay. We were kind of hoping that $1 million cap was going to go away, but they were going to increase it, but that's not the case. I am starting to get emails just this morning. I got one from a lender that's reintroducing a 35-year mortgage amortization. Now that is for people that have 20% down, but to increase that affordability, that might be something that's going to come back out, is those 35-year amortizations.
So if somebody were to get a variable rate mortgage right now, what would it be at?
The variable rate with less than 20% down, you'd be looking at probably prime minus 0.9. So that would be 3.8%. The difference where we've moved into new territory here as well, in that the federal government brought in the stress test a few years ago, more than a few years ago now, back in 2018. And that stress test rate is the greater of, it was 5.25 or your rate plus 2%. So there's quite a difference on the qualifying rate now from a fixed rate to a variable.
So this is, I've got some clients, they bought a new construction. They won't be completing until 2023. When they bought, they were qualified. They, and they would have gone through the stress test at that time, but the rate lock that they had won't hold. And what I find interesting or concerning is really, they were qualified, and of course the intent of that that qualifying rate is the stress test rate is to, in case you get your mortgage and then rates go up while you have your mortgage. But for those people who have been approved, but now they're not closing for months to years, and the rates are going up, that rate, they're going to have to requalify for a new stress test at some point, and they may not.
I'll finish that sentence. They may not qualify. Yeah, it's a challenge. It is something that there's no new rules, because it's an adjustable qualifying rate based on how rates move. But the hope is two things: is people would get raises in their jobs, hopefully yearly raises that could counteract the changes as well. Or depending on, every situation is individual, lenders will take into consideration, as long as they have at least 20% down, the changes. And hopefully they would offer an exception to those qualifying ratios.
Okay, Andrew's just sent me a note. I'm dealing with this one. So I'm hoping everybody else is paying attention, because I was trying to figure out what's going on with Andrew. And I'm going red.
Yeah, I kept talking. I just kept talking.
Okay, so sorry, say that again.
Basically, the challenge is I mean, a lot I don't want to put words in Andrew's mouth, but in looking at a lot of people, when they were trying to get into the market, they couldn't, so they bought pre-sales.
Yeah.
But now we're in a situation that what they qualified for a mortgage 3 months ago, will they be able to still be approved for that mortgage when the closing happens? And it's not a be-all, end-all. It's an individual situation. It is a concern that because the qualifying rate has gone up, it could be an issue.
Right. So I think what we're going to see is people trying to assign sales. So what an assignment is if you purchase new construction and before it completes, you can make a deal with, usually it's in the contract, in the disclosure statement, it says what the terms and conditions are if you want to resell the property before it actually completes. So that way you don't have to get the financing together. And if there's any lift in the price, usually there's a percentage that the seller will get, and you will get the rest of that. So it's all pre-agreed what's going on. I can see that happening for sure. And what it means is it will churn a lot of real estate. And so I think it's more a case of condos that's happening than it will be single family homes. So, yeah.
And
he's back. Welcome.
Wow, I don't know what the heck happened there. So I hope I missed some good stuff.
You did. So I have a question. So like in all the predictions that I'm looking at, it's saying they expect inflation to increase over the rest of this year and next year, and then to kind of settle down in 2024. Obviously, there's a supply chain issue. I mean, I notice it when I eat out that it's way more expensive. It's like $5 more for lunch compared to what it used to be.
If you can find somebody to serve you.
Yeah, well, unemployment rate is low. I mean, job vacancy rates are high. So I'm just wondering, what would bring this down? Why would economic growth weaken? And why would it then strengthen? Like, what are the overall factors? I see that they're talking about the war in Ukraine and all of that, but I don't know. What do you guys think? How are we going to get out of this?
It's above my pay grade.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've got this. I wrote down the stat. Inflation isn't just easy, or it's you can't just stop it. So how? Yeah, are people just going to stop spending money?
Well, they're going to have to tighten their bootstraps. I think that's the one thing that we're all just going to
Economies don't do well when people start to tighten their strings either, though.
Yeah.
So they want people spending money, but they don't want people, I mean, we have inflation because there's more money. I mean, isn't there more money in the pool because we've had the government printing money for, things like different benefits due to COVID and so forth. So of course we have some inflation from that.
Yeah.
The thought process too is that, or a lot of what I've read is that the federal government was very quick to drop interest rates 1.5% when they did, which we were all happy as can be because our mortgage, they dropped substantially, and they weren't quick enough to start raising interest rates.
Right. So, I mean, I guess when COVID hit and people were really concerned about the economy, the government said, we've got to really do what we can because we imagine there's a cliff coming up where people are going to have hard times with their spending money, and we need to keep the economy flowing. So let's drop interest rates so it's easier for people to do business and have the money
Continue.
Flow.
Yeah.
But then it started going too fast. They opened the floodgates too soon, and then they're a little late. The horse left the barn. And just to mix a bunch of analogies, and now they're trying to close it up a little bit, and
right, they're shifting the flow of water, flow of the money, where it's going. So I guess they're trying to get more money into the banks again. If they increase their interest rates, then hold on a second. If they increased interest rates, people will be more inclined to keep their money in the bank. I'm just wondering.
Hasn't happened yet.
No. And I think, I think the hardest thing over the past 2 years has been that it's been hard times and there has been COVID, but people have picked up the habit of spending more. They've, been going on road trips, and they've probably been spending more money locally, but now they're starting to spend it all globally. Right, with all the travel and stuff that's starting to happen, and we're seeing a crisis. So,
yeah,
things just are more expensive. Again, we talked about supply chain issues. It's when you have a delay in getting something you need. If you're a small manufacturer, even a large manufacturer, and you're waiting on this particular grommet or doodad, and it's made specialty out of somewhere, and you don't have the workers to do it, and so forth. There's a shift required in order to make things come back to an operating machine. And we're out of sync right now.
Yeah, I think so too.
Definitely.
So we're on a rebound. That's it. It's over.
I think we just nailed it.
So, what's your prediction for the upcoming year, Jen? Or what is the prediction of the banks? I heard it's supposed to increase again.
Yep. And I think it's going to get a little bit uglier before it starts getting better. Unfortunately, I think we're in for another year of a lot of uncertainty and rate increases. It's definitely an opportunity to look at your current mortgage to see if it makes sense to switch to a static payment, or what that difference would be to lock in if you're really concerned. Yeah, just see how it goes.
Okay, so expect to get a lot of calls. Jen, how do people reach you? If
my number
in touch with you. Yeah, get in touch with you.
250-217-4925 or email j.low@dominionlending.ca.
Okay, awesome. And they can go to jenlow.ca?
You got it.
Okay. And for that, you can also do your applications online for mortgage qualifications, yes. Correct?
You got it. Yep.
Okay. Good. Andrew, do you have anything you want to add?
I just want to add, and Jen, you are a wonderful resource and a great person to call if you need a mortgage. We're also moving into a time where cash will be potentially king for people who do actually have the pockets to buy without a mortgage, because they're not, they will be looking at what their money can do and the value, where can they invest it versus put into real estate. But the actual opportunity to buy, and I've been talking to a number of buyers who are cash buyers saying, I'm waiting for this. There's going to be a lot of people who can't afford anymore, and I'm expecting there to be a cliff. And so when that happens, I'm going to be able to jump in and buy with cash, and I'll be in a good position. And that's a mentality that is out there right now. And if you are a cash buyer, then certainly we want to hear from you.
And in utilizing the equity in your current home, getting a secured line of credit set up against your current home, so you've got the ability to buy cash for sure.
Yeah, and it's also a good, speaking of that, Jen, and we've just redone that with you, and it gives me a little more confidence if we are coming into some lean times, that if we had to, we could pull some equity out of our home. We have to make the payments to pay it back, but we could pull some equity out of our home to pay some bills if we were having some trouble. And so it's worth talking to a lender about that. And it does give you that cash window. Right now, when values are higher, if values do decrease by 10, 20%, you've still got your line of credit that you could use to leverage maybe into something else. Yeah. So it's all complicated moving parts. And that's why you call somebody like Jen to talk to them about it. Or you call someone like me, and to reach me. Oh, I love the eye roll. Where's the little thing? Bring it up. Bring it up, Jane.
I was going to say, don't forget to subscribe to our show on Mondays at 10 a.m.
Why would you do this?
Andrew, how do people reach you?
Oh, thanks for asking. You can reach me by calling 250-360-6106. Email me info@andrewplank.com or check out the website, andrewplank.com.
Yeah.
Jane?
Thank you, Andrew. My name is Jane Johnson. You can reach me at 250-744-0775. My email is briarhillgroup@gmail.com. Yes, that does go to me. And you can reach me at briarhillgroup.com, where you can check out all my new listings and videos on buying and selling. And if you want to see these videos, you can go to Vancouver Island Time, where you can also view videos on different neighborhoods and what it's like to live in this fabulous city of Victoria. All right. I'm going to put this right over, Jen. Sorry, Jen. Don't forget to subscribe. Well, we're on Monday mornings at 10 a.m. We'd love to hear from you. If you have any questions, please email Andrew or myself. And you can chat with us online live every Monday morning. And sorry for all the mess up today with technology. We'll work on that.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Run a thing on my... Thanks so much, Jen. It's great always to have you. And thanks, everybody, for tuning in to watch this week.
Okay, take care, everybody.
Next week.